Hi everyone, this is the lecture on ecological and carbon footprint, as well as population pyramids. I know that we've gone through some of this, but I just wanted to go back through and review it in video form. So remember, the ecological footprint is all of the land that is needed for you to live the lifestyle that you're living. This means how much land do we need to grow corn for the cattle that you'll eat or the pigs that you'll eat? Unless you're raising this stuff at home, it also has a shipping cost. How far is that product coming? How much, gasoline is needed to get it to your local grocery store? And then when they break it down and package it, what is the cost for all of that? So ecological footprint is a pretty complex item, but it really gives you a good feeling for how much land you need to run your lifestyle, and then how many Earths would we need if everyone on Earth had a lifestyle similar to yours. So here's a picture of that. Ecological footprint takes into account carbon footprint or your energy, what kind of land resources you need, how much of the land needs to be changed and developed into settlements. That would be roads and houses and businesses, parking lots for you to be able to live your lifestyle. Forest, how much forest is going to need to be cut down to do your paper products? Cropland and pasture land, how much land is needed for you to have the vegetables and the grains that you need, but then also how much is needed to feed and house the animals that you're going to eat. And then lastly, fisheries. How much of the world's oceans do you need to get the seafood that you consume? Adding up all the biological productivity of land per person worldwide. This is basically um, all of the items from that previous slide done out by hectares. So this means that there's a little under 5 acres of land per person. Now for the average American lifestyle, this actually isn't enough acreage because many Americans, or most Americans, eat quite a lot of those larger proteins, your cow and your pork, and those take a remarkable amount of corn land to grow up every year to feed those animals to then be able to bring them to market. Remember, humans can't use everything, so even if we divide all of the land up and divide by the amount of humans, we're really not getting a very good picture because we share the planet with 30 to 50 million other species, and we don't want those species to go extinct because biodiversity is so incredibly important. Sadly, it's sort of one of those things where you never know how much you wanted it or how much it was worth until it's gone, and that's what happens with a lot of our species. We're seeing a tremendous number of amphibians, reptiles, and insects going extinct, many of them before we even know that they exist. Biodiversity is important because a lot of times, again, you never know how important a species is to an ecosystem or to a branch of medicine or to a cow's health or to a monkey's health. And then, of course, all of that underlying base to our health until those organisms start to disappear. Present day footprint of the human population versus the footprint of global population if all had the average lifestyle. So right now, the world is managing to make it balanced, but that's because a lot of people do not have a lifestyle similar to the United States. And if you think back to your ecological footprint, this one says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Earths. I would say between 3.5 and 5 is a pretty good estimate for most American households. And obviously we don't have 3.5 Earths. And what they mean by this is if we're only taking into account the annual production and we're not kind of taking from future years as we are right now, this means we're not taking more fossil fuels than can be replenished, or we're not taking more fresh water than can be replenished in our aquifers. But of course we are, and that's where we get this bigger footprint. And you can see that even now the foot extends over the top, showing that we are cutting into those resources like fresh water and fossil fuels. So this is just my little joke to you. And it's meant to make you think about the fact that there are so many people on Earth who have a totally different lifestyle from you. We're going to learn about that when you guys do your Dollar Street project, so I'm very excited. And so you can see that this aid worker is looking at this little boy and he says, "You mean to tell me you have so much fresh water you shit in it?" And that's really not the kind of thing that Americans think about, that every time you go to the bathroom, you're going to the bathroom in the same water that's coming out of your sink, perfectly clean water. We don't use gray water in the United States in our toilets. It's just not something that's really possible to be done unless you live off grid and massively retrofit your house to use gray water. Or, as I did, you live in a camper van. But this little boy is basically saying, you know, potentially the people in his village have to walk hours, if not days, to get fresh water and bring it back. And the mere idea of using it to go to the bathroom is unthinkable. And actually, in a lot of countries, even the water that's in the shower is not clean, potable water. It's water that could potentially have organisms in it. But then again, you don't need to drink your shower water. So why does your shower water need to be as clean as your drinking water? One way to get an idea about what the rest of the world looks like is to think about grocery stores. On the left-hand side and the right-hand side, you can see the fresh produce area of a typical American grocery store, and then you can see the shelf area of a typical American grocery store. Look at the number of brands and products we have for each item. We don't have pasta, we have many pastas. We don't have, condiments, we have many condiments. And this is very different from what the grocery stores in the rest of the world would look like. Here are two examples of African grocery stores. You can see that these two ladies run a grocery store, and you can see the level of choices. The one on the right is this woman's entire store. And this is what people have the opportunity to come in and buy. Now, in front of her, it was in another photograph, she does have a small number of fresh goods for sale. The woman on the left, you can also see her. Her shelves did extend to the left, but you can see the very small number of packaging. You know, this is one type of product, not pasta in 20 varieties, but one variety of this particular product, one variety of this particular product, a couple of varieties of candy. So basically, there are some countries that have an ecological deficit and some countries that have an ecological overshoot. Most of our first world countries, this would be basically all of Europe, the United States, Canada, Russia, China, India, these countries are using a lot more resources than they should be to hold up their populations. Many countries in Africa have a deficit, and so the idea would be, ideally, that if we want everyone to be in balance, that countries that overshoot should pay countries that undershoot. Thus, there is a monetary incentive to keep our ecological footprint lower. Population pyramids. This is a population pyramid. They typically form this pyramidal structure. And they're going to generally be shaped like this. There's going to be men on one side and women on the other. And they're then going to show you what is the age distribution for a population, a given population at a certain age range. Now, these age ranges can be very, very narrow, a single year up to a grouping of years. So here is a particular population pyramid. This is for the country of Nigeria in 2016. What this shows is that you're having a pretty large number of children being born. So in the 0 to 4 area, this is how many children there are. But look at the number in the 5 to 9, and then the 10 to 14. And look at how this population pyramid, every time the bar shrinks in like this means that this many number of children are not surviving till that next age range. I hate to say it, but you almost, like when you chunk out the pyramid like this, you think about that shape that's missing as dead people, okay? And that means that in this country, lots and lots of children are being born, and lots of children are surviving up until that around the 9 age. but that in between that 0 to 4, you're having a pretty big death rate. And then you have a pretty significant death rate all the way up until you kind of get into this area up here, maybe above 40 or above 45, where that death rate tends to shrink off. And that shows that basically in this country, once you get to old age, you'll die of natural causes, but that you have so many opportunities to die in these earlier years. That could be due to starvation or to war or to poor hygiene or to poor medical. There's just a lot of ways in this country to not make it to full adulthood. So this says rapid growth population pyramid. Looks like a typical pyramid with a large base that gets smaller as you ascend. This type of population typically has poor health care, short life expectancies, mostly found in underdeveloped countries. Now, this is a totally different population pyramid. This is the United States. Do you notice how this doesn't really look like a pyramid actually at all until you get way up to the top, in which basically after the age of 70, you would expect there to be a population drop off. And you'd expect this because people have gotten to the natural end of their life. Between 70 and over 100, you just wouldn't expect there to be anywhere near as many people there as you would expect there to be in this under area. And so look, basically what this means is when you get to be born, you generally get to live. And so now if you're wondering, you're like, wow, that's really weird. Like, where did all those extra people come from? This is our baby boomer generation. And so these are those people who were born after World War II, and this is where they are. So our population pyramid right now, we have a smaller population coming in than we have in this baby boomer generation up here. So that's why our population kind of has this weird lumpiness to it, is that we do have years in which our population grows greater than it is currently right now. So you can see that this is slow/stable population growth. There is little change in the lower section of the pyramid. Only after the upper ages do you see a marked change in population. This type of population pyramid is mostly found in developed countries, sometimes middle-income countries. These countries have good health care, long life expectancies, and stable government structures. Now, here is a country like Japan. This can be really, really scary for a lot of countries because look at this tiny population here. You see how this population grows outward? It's almost like an inverse pyramid. What I want you to think about this section in here, I want you to think about this as unborn people. Essentially, in the past, Japan had larger population growth than it does today. In fact, Japan's population growth is markedly under the number 1. So this means that there are less than 1 person being born for every person who is dying. And this can cause some significant issues in healthcare. Also, look at Japan's upper population. Look how many people they have in this 95 to 99 and 90 to 94 area. That's really a lot of people because Japan has one of the longest living ranges in the entire world. The top third and the bottom third are both similar size. This means that the population is shrinking. This is going to be a highly developed country with good health care, long life expectancy, and stable government. However, they can't see, there's got to be something going on in the country that is not allowing young people to want to have children. Sometimes this is simply cultural desire. Sometimes this is overtaxation. But each individual country, you sort of have to look into that country to figure out what is going on with their population. Summary. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment and let you read this summary slide. If you need more time, you can pause it and go over it. Okay, if you need more time, please hit the pause button. Demographic transition. movement of a nation from high population growth to low population as it develops economically. So in other words, countries are constantly on a shift through these high, medium, and low population growths. So in other words, a country, as that country becomes more into the middle class, that country can shift from one where you have that very pyramidal structure, and that pyramid can get fatter and fatter, showing that the country is working on its healthcare and other social services. This can happen by external forces, things like the UN. It can happen from internal sources, stabilizing government. It can happen from people's desire. People start to make more money. They start to demand more social services, and the country transitions towards better healthcare, better infrastructure. That means roads, better farming practices, all which lead to people having longer lives. Now, there's another way to look at this transition, and it's stages 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm just going to skip to a chart which allows you to see these all next to each other. I think it's easier to see them together as a group. Okay, our very, very pyramidal. High birth rate, rapid fall in each category due to high death rate and short life expectancy. Remember, many, many people being born, but those people are rapidly dying because there is danger at all aspects of their life. Danger from war, danger from famine, i.e. starvation, danger from social unrest, danger from needing to travel long distances to get water or to need to emigrate to another safer place. Stage 2, expanding also. High birth rate, fall in death rate as more living into middle ages, slightly longer life expectancy. Do you see how there's less people dying in these early years? That the pyramid has basically formed a full pyramidal structure, that you're getting less death rate early. A lot of times this is when other nations have stepped in, maybe Doctors Without Borders, and they're starting to really put pressure on the country and to try to help the farmers produce enough food, to try to help mothers give birth, to try to help those babies be able to survive past infancy, thus having a much greater shot at getting into middle age. Stationary. Do you see how basically if you're born, you're going to live, and only up around after 65 do you see that decline until everyone is dead at, let's say, 110? Declining birth rate, low death rate, more people living to old age. Contracting. Look at this little division in here. This is saying that this country has less people being born than it did in the past. Look how many people were born here. This little triangle here is people who have not been conceived. And so the country is actually shrinking. Eventually, you're going to have many more old people than you do young people. This is like Japan. It's a contracting culture. Here's another way to look at this. And you can sort of see how the total population, can change. When you're in stage 1, population grows very slowly because of a high birth rate and a high death rate. Population grows rapidly because birth rates are high and death rates are dropping because of improved food production and health. Population growth rate slows as both birth rate and death rate drop because of improved food production, healthcare, and education. Population growth levels off and then declines as birth rate equals and then falls below death rate. So in other words, you can see this total population. Doesn't this look like we're going to carrying capacity? And that's basically what happens. This doesn't always happen. Generally, because of immigration and policies, governmental policies, you'll see this go on for a very long time until something happens like very high economic pressure that causes the society to begin to drop off. So here's a very highly specialized one for the United States. Baby boomers, 1955, okay? They're down here and they're born. In 1985, they're in their 20s and 30s. In 2015, in their 50s and 60s. And then by 2035, in their 70s and 80s. Basically, from 2025 to 2035, this is when the baby boomers will have the most significant economic impact. And if the United States does not have enough workers to hold up the social services, you have to think about what will happen to these people as they need more and more Medicare, as they need more and more Social Security, especially because our healthcare is doing nothing but getting better, and these people are going to live longer and longer. Difference based on economics. So again, in more developed countries, you're going to have a very straight line. Number of people that you have. That basically your chances, of dying until you get up into these much higher levels is very, very low. Why? Because, these countries have good education, good healthcare, good food. Over here, if you're born in the less developed countries, you have a much more substantial chance to die earlier on, way earlier than in the developed countries. Solutions for slowing population growth, they're really simple. Economic developments, reduce poverty, increase education for everyone. Family planning, give families the ability to select when they reproduce, how early, how many, how late. Empower women. Give women an economic stake in the country. Allow them to equally own businesses and then teach their daughters how to do that as well. Economic solutions for failing states. Rapid population growth, extreme poverty, economic degradation leads to governments that can no longer produce a safe nation, hence producing those really big triangle countries. This would be civil war, terrorism, low income, less developed infrastructure, less developed economy, and less skilled workers. These are going to be people who are going to either pass away because they cannot emigrate, or emigrate and put pressure on the countries around them, thus still having that really big triangle because of all of these dangers that the citizens face. If we allow the government to stabilize, and then of course help with family planning. When do you have your first child? How many children are you going to have? Are you going to have high quality children? In other words, a small number of children that are going to be educated, have food and jobs waiting for them. And then again, empowering women. Obviously, microloans are a really good way to do this, allowing women to be in the home, thus being able to take care of the children that are there, but also supplement the wage of the house by doing small trades such as weaving or sewing or washing. Getting to know more about your global community, this is going to be Gapminder, and this is the project that you guys are all working on right now. So I hope that you'll enjoy it, and we'll see those presentations at the end of the week.